Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Freilich and Shushan Plurim. Okay. We are learning Mishnah Erevin, Parak Ches, chapter 8, and we are up to Mishnah Tes, Mishnah 9. Okay. So until now, I've been talking about how do you draw water out of a river that's passing under your courtyard. Now I'm going to talk about how the discussion now is going to be about spilling out water on Shabbos. Spilling out.
That's a problem.
Well, it's a problem if, let's say, it lands. It spit when you pour it, it lands up in Rosh Hashanah. Now, again, here we are not talking about directly pouring water into the Rosh Hashanah, but the problem is that you may be pouring water in your courtyard and then it flows out to the Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbanan didn't want you to do that. So, if you have a courtyard that is less than 4 cubits by 4 cubits, it's a pretty small courtyard. But that's what it is. That's the area in front of your house that you have to use. It's an area less than 4 cubits by 4 cubits. Ein sheifchen b'seich hamayim b'Shabbos. You cannot pour out. We cannot pour water there on Shabbos. Now again, this water is your wastewater. Whatever it may be. Use it for your dishes, whatever it may be. It's wastewater. And so we say that you cannot pour it onto the courtyard on Shabbos. Unless you made a uka, that means like a cesspool, a ditch that holds 2 sa'ah of water from the hole below. So that means like this. If you're going to go ahead and pour it, if your courtyard is less than 4 by 4, so the problem is that we're afraid that the water you pour there is not going to get absorbed into the ground. It's going to then start flowing out and going to flow into the Rosh Hashanah, which we didn't want you to do that. It looks like transferring to Rosh Hashanah, to public domain.
Even though you have no positive.
There is no intention. You're not directly doing it. Nonetheless, they didn't want you to do it. Now, were this courtyard to be 4 by 4, then actually that size, they say that's going to be enough. That's going to be large enough for the water to get absorbed before it starts flowing out. But if it's less than 4 by 4, we're concerned it's going to flow out. Now, so what do you do? So it says you make a uka, which the article calls a cesspool, which maybe has a kind of harsh connotation there, but it means that basically you're creating a hole by which that wastewater gathers. Now, this hole, let's call it what it is, a cesspool. That has the base. The point is that number one, so the water gathers there, and eventually when there's overflow, right, there's a hole that allows it to go out, allows the overflow to go out. So if you have an uka, you've got this cesspool, it holds sasayim. A sa'ah is a volume. 2 sa'ah of water, the chachamim assumed, is the amount of water a person uses per day. So if this uka, if this cesspool can hold 2 sa'ah of water from the hole and down, meaning it holds enough there's enough there in this cesspool to say that, it can hold the regular amount of water and it's not going to flow out because it's in the cesspool. Therefore, we say you can pour it there. And if, let's say, for some reason, there's some kind of overflow, let's say for some reason you use a little bit more, there's an overflow, then already that's considered so indirect of therefore, the water flowing into the Rosh Hashanah, to the public domain, because of what you did, is considered so indirect that the Chachamim aren't concerned about that. So therefore, if you go ahead and you make this cesspool and it holds a sa'ah from the overflow hole and below, then you're okay. Now, this cesspool can be outside or inside. What does outside or inside mean? So inside means it's in your courtyard. It's in your courtyard, which means that it's in your domain. There's no problem putting the water there. It's in your domain. It's in your private domain. It's part of the private domain. There's no problem putting the water there. But then there's also, it says you could do it outside. Outside would actually mean that this cesspool is in the public domain. It's actually there. And it would sound like that's a little bit problematic. Like if the cesspool's in the public domain and you're pouring the water into that, you're transferring from private domain to a public domain. Says the Mishnah, Ela shemibachutz tzarech likmar, mifnim ein tzarech likmar. If that cesspool is outside, meaning it's in the public domain, you know what you do? You put a dome over it. You put a covering over it. And then by putting a covering over it, then already we say, right. So essentially, this hole is not really so much a part of the Rishus Harabim, but because it looks like it's Rishus Harabim, you got to do something to make it, look like, oh, this is not a public thing. It's not a public thing it's not something for the public to use. So you put the dome over it. So that's clear. This is not something for the public to use. And therefore, if you if you put your water there, it's not going to be a problem of transferring into the Rishus Harabim to the public domain. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful Shabbos, and again, a Freilich and Purim. Freilich and Shushan Purim.
Thank you, Rabbi.
That cesspool is right next to the border of your